Welcome to our podcast, where we explore the most chilling mysteries and startling truths behind real-life crimes. What started as a family scandal filled with betrayal, hidden secrets, and shame would lead to one of the most brutal murders this community had ever witnessed. This is the story of a cherished wife and mother whose pursuit of justice and truth ultimately cost her life in the most terrifying way. Rebecca, Becky Saunders, was a 34-year-old elementary school teacher living in Clanton, Alabama, a small town famous for its peach festivals and tight-knit community. Becky was a devoted mother to two children, Cloth, 8, and Chewbacca, or Chewy for short, 5. Her husband, Jimmy Joe Saunders, owned a local landscaping business. The family regularly attended Sunday services at a nearby Baptist church and were well known and liked by their neighbors. Becky was born and raised in Clanton, graduating from Chilton County High School in 2002. She was known for her bright smile and unwavering dedication to her students. In the evenings, she could often be found grading papers and preparing lessons, frequently turning to Pinterest for creative classroom ideas. Becky was deeply devoted to her family and had a strong sense of right and wrong. She was the kind of person who would bring a casserole to a sick neighbor or stay late to help a student in need. But she wasn't afraid to speak up when something didn't sit right with her. This strong sense of justice sometimes put Becky at odds with others, especially her estranged half-sister, Megan Lyles, and her mother, Nancy Lyles. In the days before her death, Becky's life took a dramatic turn. On April 15, 2018, at a church potluck at the First Baptist Church of Clanton, Becky publicly revealed that her husband, Jimmy Joe, had been having a year-long affair with Megan. Witnesses described Becky standing by the dessert table, holding a plate of banana pudding as she calmly shared the details of her husband's affair, even recounting how she had caught Jimmy Joe and Megan in the act on the kitchen floor. The revelation sent shockwaves through the congregation, leaving both Jimmy Joe and Megan humiliated. Becky had also confided in close friends that she planned to speak at an upcoming town council meeting to reveal another, more troubling secret within her family, though she kept the details to herself. Her friends described Becky as nervous but resolute, determined to set things right. In the days leading up to her death, she continued her usual routine, teaching, caring for her kids, and preparing for what she hoped would be a turning point for her family. Her dreams were simple yet powerful: to give her children a better future and to live a life free from betrayal and lies. Sadly, Becky's dreams would be shattered in the most horrifying way. On April 19, 2018, at around 11:45 p.m., her body was found in the bathroom of a Sunoco gas station off Highway 31 in Clanton, Alabama. The gas station was a popular stop for late-night travelers and locals, known for its convenience store filled with snacks and Coca-Cola vending machines. The discovery was made by Kyle Patterson, a 22-year-old college student and Domino's pizza delivery driver. Kyle had stopped to use the restroom after his shift, planning to smoke from a bong. What he found inside was both horrifying and surreal. "I opened the door and there was blood everywhere," Kyle later told local news station WBRC. "It was like something out of a horror movie." Terrified, Kyle immediately called 911, his voice trembling as he described the gruesome scene. Emergency responders arrived within minutes. Clanton's small-town law enforcement rarely encountered violent crimes, so the discovery left even the most experienced first responders in shock. Kyle, still visibly shaken, remained at the scene to answer police questions but was too disturbed to continue his deliveries that night. Becky's body was found in a horrific state. She had been stabbed more than 40 times, with the injuries indicating a violent, frenzied attack. Her limbs were severed, and her neck was almost completely decapitated. Blood covered the walls and floor of the small restroom, creating a scene one investigator would later describe as truly nightmarish. A bloody knife was left in the sink, and a trail of bloody footprints suggested the attacker had fled on foot. Local media quickly picked up the story, with headlines like "Clanton Teacher Found Murdered in Gas Station Bathroom" dominating the news. The community was in shock. Becky was a beloved teacher and mother, and her brutal death felt even more senseless because of it. Kyle Patterson was offered counseling by the local police department and took time off from his job, unable to shake the disturbing images of what he had witnessed. Word of Becky's death spread quickly throughout Clanton. The Sunoco station was temporarily closed, and a makeshift memorial of flowers and candles appeared outside as the small town mourned one of its own. The Clanton Police Department arrived at the gas station around midnight on April 19, 2018, just moments after receiving Kyle Patterson's frantic 911 call. Officers Mark Dempsey and Carla Ruse were the first to arrive, shortly followed by Detective Wayne Grayson, a 15-year veteran known for his calm demeanor and meticulous attention to detail. What they found was horrifying. Becky Saunders' body lay on the tiled floor of the small single-stall restroom, surrounded by pools of blood. Blood spattered the walls and sink, and the mutilation of Becky's body was so violent it was nearly impossible to comprehend. A bloody kitchen knife was found in the sink, its wooden handle cracked, likely from the force of the attack. Bloody footprints led out of the restroom and onto the gas station lot, fading near the road. Detective Grayson quickly took charge of the crime scene investigation. The area was sealed off with yellow police tape, and evidence markers were placed throughout the restroom and the parking lot. Forensic investigators photographed the scene, collected blood samples, and secured the knife for testing. Establishing a timeline of Becky's final hours became the investigation's top priority. A key breakthrough came when officers learned that Becky's husband, Jimmy Joe Saunders, had been stopped and arrested for DUI just hours before her estimated time of death. At around 9:15 p.m., Jimmy Joe was pulled over by an Alabama state trooper on County Road 41, less than 2 miles from the Sunoco gas station. According to the arrest report, Jimmy Joe was swerving between lanes in his Ford F-150. The trooper noted that he appeared intoxicated and had a strong smell of alcohol on him. Jimmy Joe was booked into the Chilton County Jail shortly after his arrest. His blood alcohol content registered at 90.15, nearly twice the legal limit. This raised questions about his whereabouts earlier in the evening and whether he knew anything about Becky's plans. Detectives also reviewed surveillance footage from the gas station. The grainy video showed Becky arriving at 11:20 p.m., parking her Honda Civic near the side of the building. Moments later, an unidentified figure followed her inside. While the footage didn't capture a clear image of the suspect, the timeline matched her estimated time of death. The discovery of Jimmy Joe's DUI and the surveillance footage gave investigators a starting point, but the brutality of the crime drove them to dig deeper. Jimmy Joe Saunders, 36, was the first person questioned in Becky's murder. As her husband of 16 years, he was a key figure in her life. The couple married shortly after high school, with Jimmy Joe working as a mechanic at a local auto shop while Becky pursued her dream of becoming a teacher. Over the years, their marriage grew strained. Friends described Jimmy Joe as charming, but also unreliable. The grainy video showed Becky arriving at 11:20 p.m., parking her Honda Civic near the side of the building. Moments later, an unidentified figure followed her inside. While the footage didn't capture a clear image of the suspect, The timeline matched her estimated time of death. The discovery of Jimmy Joe's DUI and the surveillance footage gave investigators a starting point, but the brutality of the crime drove them to dig deeper. Jimmy Joe Saunders, 36, was the first person questioned in Becky's murder. As her husband of 16 years, he was a key figure in her life. The couple married shortly after high school, with Jimmy Joe working as a mechanic at a local auto shop, while Becky pursued her dream of becoming a teacher. He frequently put his late-night affairs and flirtations ahead of his family. The trouble began in late 2016, when Jimmy Joe reconnected with Becky's half-sister, Megan Lyles, at a family gathering. Megan, 29 at the time, had always been a point of contention within the family. Megan was known for her fiery temper and rebellious nature, with a history of legal trouble including arrests for DUI and marijuana possession. Despite this, her bold personality drew Jimmy Joe in. What started as him offering to fix her old Chevy Malibu soon led to more frequent visits to Megan's small apartment near the Popeyes where she worked. By early 2017, their flirtation had turned into a full-blown affair. Jimmy Joe and Megan carried on their affair in secret, meeting up at her apartment or sometimes in the back of his truck. Becky discovered the affair in March 2018 under the most shocking circumstances. After returning home early from a school field trip, she walked in on Jimmy Joe and Megan in the midst of a compromising moment on the kitchen floor of their ranch-style home on Cherokee Avenue. Becky was livid. In a fit of rage, she screamed at them and hurled a ceramic dish against the wall. Jimmy Joe and Megan quickly fled, leaving Becky to wrestle with the overwhelming emotions of betrayal and heartbreak. In the weeks that followed, Becky confided in close friends and hinted at even deeper betrayals within her family. But it wasn't just private conversations. She made it clear to everyone. At a church potluck in March, Becky stood up in front of a crowded room and publicly exposed Jimmy Joe and Megan's affair. The congregation fell silent as Becky pointed them out, leaving both Jimmy Joe and Megan stunned and frozen in their seats. During his questioning, Jimmy Joe seemed quiet and defensive. He denied having any role in Becky's death, pointing to his DUI arrest as proof of his whereabouts. However, when the topic of his affair with Megan came up, he became noticeably uneasy. Detectives observed his inconsistent responses and his inability to maintain eye contact. While Jimmy Joe acknowledged that the affair had strained family relations, he insisted he would never hurt Becky. Despite his alibi, investigators continued to doubt his involvement, sensing something wasn't quite right. The volatile nature of Jimmy Joe and Becky's relationship, compounded by the public humiliation and his affair with Megan, raised questions about his potential motive for murder. Detectives also looked into his activities earlier that evening, before his DUI arrest, suspecting he might have known more about Becky's final moments. Meanwhile, Megan Lyles, 29, Becky's half-sister, quickly became a critical figure in the investigation. Megan's troubled history immediately put her under scrutiny as detectives worked to piece together her role in Becky's murder. Employed at the drive-thru of a local Popeyes, Megan had long been familiar with legal issues and personal struggles. Her record included multiple arrests for offenses like DUI and marijuana possession, which painted a picture of a woman with a history of poor decisions. In 2015, a shocking incident occurred in the quiet town of Clanton, Alabama. Megan, driving without clothes and under the influence, crashed her car into a utility pole. Known for her quick temper and aggressive behavior, she had earned a reputation for being unpredictable. Although they had the same father, Megan and Becky had never formed a close bond. Megan's reckless lifestyle was in stark contrast to Becky's more conservative and traditional values. The strain between them grew even worse when Megan started an affair with Becky's husband, Jimmy Joe Saunders. What began as a secret affair came to light during a dramatic confrontation at a church potluck in April 2018, exposing their relationship to the community. At the potluck, witnesses said the scene felt like something straight out of a soap opera. Becky, filled with anger and hurt, stood before a crowd of friends and neighbors at the small Baptist church. With a composed yet biting tone, she publicly exposed the affair between Jimmy Joe and Megan. The room fell silent as every eye turned toward the couple. Megan, who had been quiet at first, suddenly stood up, her voice cutting through the tension. "You think I'm the bad one?" she shouted, preparing to unleash a bombshell of her own. Megan's words hit like a bomb. "Your mom and I have been sleeping together too." The room erupted in chaos as she stormed out, leaving Becky and the congregation frozen in shock. The confrontation not only widened the divide between the sisters, but also cast Megan's turbulent relationships into the public spotlight, exposing them for all to see. Megan's history of violent outbursts soon drew the attention of investigators. Friends and co-workers recalled her losing control over the smallest issues, frequently throwing things or slamming doors in fits of rage. One incident, in particular, stood out. Just the day before Becky's murder, Megan and Becky were spotted having a heated argument in the parking lot of the local Piggly Wiggly. Witnesses said Megan was shouting and making aggressive gestures, while Becky looked visibly distressed. When the police spoke to Megan, she became defensive and combative, refusing to cooperate. Megan denied any involvement in Becky's death, brushing off their argument as just another typical family dispute. However, her alibi for the night of Becky's murder was far from convincing. She claimed to have been home alone, watching reruns of The Real Housewives of Atlanta and taking notes on how to mimic their behavior. However, no one could verify Megan's whereabouts that night. Detectives quickly saw a clear motive: the affair with Jimmy Joe, the public humiliation at the potluck, and her constant tension with Becky all painted a picture of a woman who had been pushed to the edge. As the investigation unfolded, Megan's violent past and the heated argument the day before the murder made her a prime suspect. Then, on April 24, 2018, a surprising turn of events changed the course of the case. That morning, police received an anonymous tip from one of Nancy Lyle's employees at her salon. The anonymous employee from Nancy's salon provided troubling new information about Nancy's recent behavior, prompting detectives to investigate further into Becky Saunders' complicated relationship with her mother. Nancy Lyles, 54, had long been known as a bold and flamboyant figure in Clinton, Alabama, always at the center of attention. Becky, with her strong sense of morality and commitment to family values, frequently criticized Nancy's choices, especially her promiscuous lifestyle and carefree attitude. As the investigation progressed, police uncovered startling evidence that revealed Nancy's deeper intentions. Among her belongings, they found a series of texts and handwritten notes detailing a plan to publicly humiliate Becky. The notes outlined a shocking and elaborate scheme. Nancy planned to lure Becky to a public event, where she would strip her of her clothes and shave her head in front of a cheering crowd. According to the texts, Nancy's motive was revenge. She sought to retaliate for Becky's constant criticism and the humiliation she felt after the explosive revelations at the church potluck, where both Becky and Megan had aired their personal grievances. One text read, "That little bit thinks she's better than me. Let's see how fucking perfect she feels after this." Another note indicated that Nancy had reached out to Megan Lyles for help with the plan, though it remained unclear whether Megan had agreed to take part. This revelation added a new layer to the investigation. Police began to view Nancy not merely as an estranged mother, but as a woman driven by deep-seated resentment and humiliation. The discovery of her elaborate plot hinted at a toxic family dynamic that extended far beyond ordinary disagreements, exposing a web of bitterness and revenge. The discovery uncovered a tangled web of secrets, betrayals, and long-held grudges, any of which could have pushed one of the suspects to commit murder. For detectives, this twist expanded the scope of their investigation. They began to focus on Nancy's alibi for the night of Becky's death and closely examined her interactions with Becky in the weeks leading up to the tragedy. Although the evidence didn't directly link Nancy to Becky's murder, it raised serious questions about her involvement in the family drama that could have played a part in the crime. Nancy's alleged plot added another layer of complexity and intrigue to an already tangled case, leading investigators to consider the possibility that Becky's death might have been the result of multiple people's actions. As police dug deeper into Nancy Lyle's life, they uncovered a scandalous web of relationships that shook the small town of Clanton, Alabama to its core. Nancy, 54, was known for her fiery personality and her ability to command attention, but her private life turned out to be even more dramatic than her public image. Beyond being Becky Saunders' mother, Nancy was a hairstylist, confident in her own allure, and, as it later emerged, a serial seductress. In addition to her infamous love hoedowns, large sex parties where hundreds would gather to engage in sexual activities, investigators uncovered evidence that Nancy had been involved in numerous sexual relationships within the community. Her partners included a wide range of individuals, from local business owners to members of the church congregation. Some of Nancy's partners were married, others single, but all seemed captivated by her bold charisma and unapologetic way of life. Friends and acquaintances revealed that her salon, Nancy's Cutting Edge, was more than just a place for hairstyling. It also served as a hub for illicit drugs and sexual encounters. One neighbor went so far as to call it Clanton's unofficial whorehouse. Text messages retrieved by the police revealed Nancy's skill in managing multiple lovers at the same time. She kept her affairs carefully organized, making sure her partners remained unaware of each other. But Nancy's promiscuity wasn't just driven by desire. It was also about control. In a police interview, Nancy admitted that she frequently used her relationships to manipulate and get back at others, including her own daughter. Detectives were shocked when Nancy disclosed a particularly startling detail. Nancy revealed that she had been involved with Jimmy Joe Saunders, Becky's husband. This bombshell came just days after it was discovered that Nancy had also had a sexual relationship with Megan Lyles, her former stepdaughter, who was also Jimmy Joe's lover and Becky's half-sister. Nancy admitted that her affair with Jimmy Joe wasn't simply about physical attraction or casual sex. Nancy claimed that her affair with Jimmy Joe was partly driven by a desire to undermine Becky. According to her, Becky had always been judgmental and self-righteous, constantly criticizing Nancy's lifestyle and relationships. Sleeping with Becky's husband, Nancy said, was her way of showing Becky that she's not better than me. The affair with Jimmy Joe reportedly started in late 2016, shortly after he and Becky returned to Clanton. They first crossed paths at Nancy's salon one evening when Jimmy Joe came to pick up Becky after a late appointment. What began as a flirtation quickly turned into a full-blown affair, with the two meeting regularly at motels and even at Nancy's house for sex whenever Becky was away. For detectives, Nancy's complicated love life provided both a motive and a distraction. It revealed the lengths she was willing to go to in order to undermine her daughter, but it also muddied the investigation with layers of deceit and emotional complexity. Nancy's revelations made her a key figure in the case, raising critical questions about how her manipulations may have played a role in the events leading to Becky's murder. As Nancy's personal life was uncovered, the town of Clanton was left in shock. The woman who had once been seen as a vibrant and eccentric figure was now at the heart of a family tragedy that revealed the darkest secrets of those closest to her. The truth behind Becky Saunders' brutal murder began to unfold in the most unexpected and chilling way. Cornered and humiliated after Becky publicly exposed her affair with Jimmy Joe, Megan Lyles lost control. In a moment of rage and desperation, she followed Becky into a gas station bathroom on the night of April 18, 2018, and brutally stabbed her. Just days earlier, during a church potluck, Becky had confronted Megan, openly revealing her betrayal to the entire congregation. The confrontation, which many described as explosive, left Megan feeling humiliated. Witnesses reported seeing her storm out, cursing and vowing revenge. In the days that followed, Megan's behavior grew more erratic. She drank heavily and openly vented her anger toward Becky to anyone who would listen. On the night of the murder, Becky stopped at a local Sunoco station after finishing a late shift at work. Surveillance footage captured Megan arriving shortly afterward in her old Ford Focus. Police reports revealed that Megan had been waiting nearby, keeping an eye out for Becky. As Becky entered the restroom, Megan followed closely behind. What happened next was swift and violent. Investigators believe Megan confronted Becky, shouting accusations and blaming her for ruining her life. The altercation escalated quickly, ending in a brutal attack. When Becky attempted to leave, Megan pulled out a kitchen knife she had brought with her and brutally stabbed Becky nearly 40 times. The vicious attack left Becky almost beheaded, with fatal wounds to her chest and abdomen, as well as her limbs severed from her body. Megan fled the scene, leaving Becky to die on the restroom floor. Detectives pieced together Megan's involvement using physical evidence and witness testimonies. A gas station clerk remembered hearing loud arguing coming from the bathroom just before closing time. When police reviewed the surveillance footage, they saw Megan's car leaving the parking lot shortly after Becky entered the restroom, confirming her presence at the scene. The knife used in the murder was later discovered in a nearby dumpster, still stained with Becky's blood. Forensic analysis confirmed Megan's fingerprints on the handle. When combined with her erratic behavior in the days leading up to the murder and eyewitness accounts placing her at the gas station, police had more than enough evidence to make an arrest. Megan was taken into custody 2 days after the murder. During questioning, she initially denied any involvement but eventually broke down, admitting she had been at the gas station. She claimed, however, that the attack was an act of self-defense. According to officers present, Megan displayed a mix of anger and fear, insisting that Becky had pushed her too far. For the community of Clanton, Megan's arrest brought both a sense of closure and a wave of disbelief. A young woman whose life had spiraled into turmoil was now facing charges for a crime that had torn an entire family apart. The trial of Megan Lyles for the murder of Becky Saunders became the center of attention in the small town, capturing the public's eye throughout the summer of 2019. Megan's defense team, led by attorney Christopher "Chris" Hayworth, took a bold approach. They argued an insanity defense, claiming that Megan's mental state had been so shattered by Becky's public humiliation that she acted out of an uncontrollable fit of rage. Hayworth painted a picture of a young woman consumed by betrayal and humiliation, pushed beyond her limits. In his opening statements, Hayworth outlined Megan's tumultuous life, including her struggles with substance abuse and the chaotic relationship she had with Becky. He told the jury that Megan had been trapped in a spiral of shame and jealousy. Her actions, he argued, were not those of a cold-blooded killer, but of a woman broken by years of emotional turmoil. pushed to her breaking point. Prosecutor Rachel Mendoza, however, methodically dismantled the defense's claims. She argued that Megan's actions were calculated and deliberate, not impulsive. Mendoza presented strong evidence, including surveillance footage showing Megan waiting for Becky at the gas station and forensic findings that directly linked Megan to the murder weapon. This was not a crime of passion, Mendoza stated. This was premeditated murder fueled by resentment and rage. Over the course of the 2-week trial, the jury heard testimony from various witnesses, including the gas station clerk and several members of the church congregation who had witnessed Becky's explosive confrontation with Megan. Megan's history of violent outbursts, including the heated argument with Becky the day before the murder, further strengthened the prosecution's case. The defense relied on a psychologist's testimony, claiming that Megan suffered from intermittent explosive disorder, which could impair her ability to control her actions. However, during cross-examination, the psychologist admitted that Megan had never been formally diagnosed with a disorder before the murder, undermining the defense's argument. After deliberating for less than 6 hours, the jury returned a guilty verdict on all charges, including first-degree murder. Judge Cynthia Hallstrom sentenced Megan to life in prison without the possibility of parole. During sentencing, Megan broke down in tears as she apologized to Becky's family, but still maintained that she had never intended to kill her. For Becky's loved ones, the verdict was a bittersweet moment. Justice was served, but nothing will bring Becky back, her brother Tim Saunders said outside the courthouse. The trial's dramatic conclusion, combined with the unusual insanity defense centered on jealousy, left a lasting impact on the town. It cemented the case as one of Clinton's most notorious crimes, forever etched in the town's history.